with mentors, you need to have somebody that's going to push you. If you're looking for like a coach that's a cheerleader, I don't know if that's going to be the right thing, because
Right.
if you screw up, you need to have somebody that tells you, dude, you screwed up.
Yeah.
You can't have somebody just be like Mr. Positive all the time. You need somebody that's going to, take that fire poker and, slap you on the backside and be like,
Right.
get going. What are you doing?
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Middleton Methods podcast. We have another phenomenal interview with you guys, for you guys this week. So I've got my friend Jason Luchesi here, real estate investor, entrepreneur, author. We're going to be talking about real estate. We're going to be talking about entrepreneurship. I have some questions for Jason, but before we get into that, Jason, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about your background? I've been reading the book. Awesome, by the way.
Oh,
Right,
thank you.
flipping now.
There we go. There it is.
I've got some history. Obviously, we've known each other for probably, I don't know, 7-8 years now.
That's
But why
been a
don't you
while.
catch our audience up to what you're doing now, what your background is, and then we'll jump right into the questions.
Sure, sure. Thanks for having me on the show. So I began my career in real estate in 2002. It was in the mortgage side of things. So started off there. I was only 19 years old. I wasn't planning on going to college. It just wasn't my cup of tea because
I hear
I
that.
barely graduated high school. And
Me
I
too.
felt like entrepreneurism was really my thing, because I kid you not, I was thinking real estate even in high school because my mom bought a Carlton Sheets course. and,
Nice.
and I was hooked because I wanted to be one of those people Carlton was interviewing with that backdrop of the ocean. And I'm like, oh, I want to be one of those people. I know I can do it. So I felt like, I was always good at sales, got into the mortgage business, and then the mortgage industry collapsed. And pretty much it was August of 2007. And it was a really crazy time. I got married in October of 2007. We had a child on the way and facing a lot of uncertainty. So got involved as a full-time real estate investor in 2008. It was quite the shaky road in the beginning. And yeah, man, been doing real estate full-time since 2008 now. Do a lot of wholesaling, and also building up my own income producing portfolio. So that's kind of me in like a 1-minute nutshell.
All right. So do you do, so when you say real estate, is it mostly wholesaling, mostly rehabbing? Is
Oh
it
yeah.
50-50?
No. So 65% of my business is going to be wholesaling, and that's going to be both residential properties and commercial properties. 10% is really only going to be rehabbing. It really has to make sense for me to do a rehab nowadays, just because it's a big headache.
Yeah.
Unless it's making a good amount of money, the numbers make sense, I won't do it. And then the other remaining part is we've raised private money over the years to where we can buy really good properties that are cash flowing and keep them in our portfolio.
Gotcha. Cool. So on this show, we talk a lot about the American dream. We talk a lot about freedom. Obviously, that's why we have affinity to real estate investing ourselves. Tell us, what's your definition of freedom? I know one of the chapters you talk about the work-life balance does exist. That would intrigue me. But I'd like to just hear, we have entrepreneurs. A lot of our audience is either new entrepreneurs or, there's millennials probably making close to 6 figures, if not 6 figures in their job. But they're at that point, right, where you're like, all right, I'm 30, 35. I've got the house. I got, all the check boxes. I'm at the ceiling of my career, and they look around and they go, all right, I've got all this debt. I still have student debt. Like, is this it? This is what it means to the American dream. They say is 130,000 a year. So what's your definition of freedom and the American dream?
Well, I'll tell you what really kind of led me down the path to where I am now is when I was in the mortgage business. I thought everything was really good. I had a nice six figures coming in, but I was working probably 16-hour days. I tell everybody this that, are either wanting to get into the business or, they've been in the business for a little bit of time. It's just like, it was a blur for me, probably between the ages of 21 to 25 and a half. And I mean, and it's not a good blur either. Like,
Yeah.
not one of those blurs where I went out and was drinking all the time. It was, I was working 16-hour days and Saturdays were included. And I just, I had a really nice car, but it was leased, and I owned a couple pieces of real estate that were all 100% financed. And at the end of the day, I started to realize, I'm like, this isn't going to be good long term. So fast forward to when I became an entrepreneur, that first year is really tough. It's, you're not going to have like the rainbows and, sunshine all the time. It's going to be brutal your first year. And if nobody's telling you that, or somebody's telling you it's going to be, you're going to be able to do whatever you want, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
People are lying. And I tell people, I'm like, you're going to have to work really, really hard to get, your business going, systems going. And for me, financial freedom, or freedom in general.
Right. Let's not compartmentalize it into just financial, right?
Right. No, it's just, I believe it's just living life on your own terms. Like, it's different for everybody. Me, I'm really big into spending time with family. So I coach my son's basketball team, and they're going to play 35 games over their season, and he's only 9. And I didn't know what I signed up for. Like, I remember I went to the meeting and they were like, yeah, the coaches volunteered. I don't think they understood that, it's going to probably be 90 hours. So it's crazy, but I love it. We just got blown out this past weekend, so we're going to have tough practices here going out. And, just being able to go on vacation whenever we want. My wife and I just returned from Bora Bora for almost 2 weeks.
Nice.
And, I was able to do that. I still love doing this business. I still checked the computer, I think like a total of 2 times that I was there.
In 2 weeks?
Yeah, in 2 weeks. So I was able to do that. And it's just like, you don't get there right away.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to, you could build out the systems and all that kind of stuff within your first year and start leading that path and that road that you want. But it's going to be different for everybody else. I love spending time with the family. I love being able to just go on vacations whenever we want. And if we want to just, lounge around and watch, binge watch Stranger Things, season 1 and 2, we want to be able to do that.
That's funny. We were just watching that last night.
So were we.
Oh, that's good. So would you say there's anything that's like what's the worst part about being an entrepreneur?
So,
if anything.
No, like with anything, not everything's going to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have where, some of your folks might get sick, or people aren't making sales, or deals aren't getting under contract. Those are going to be the days that, aren't fun. And you have to face reality sometimes. I always take the viewpoint of, if you're your business owner, you're the CEO, you should always be looking in on the business rather than being the busy bee, always always working for your business rather than working on the business.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you do have to still get into the trenches and make things happen, because sometimes you do need to lead by example rather than, just telling from the rooftops what you want done. So sometimes that has to happen too. I still have to possibly go and look at properties, and that's completely fine. I hardly ever have to do that, but when I do, it brings back all those emotions that I had when I was first getting started of, this is awesome, this is fun. So I still really enjoy all that stuff. So, if that has to be some of the worst things for the business, I'll take it. I still see that as having fun. So it's still cool to hop in and, do it, the business, because it's something that I'm still very passionate about.
So what I hear you saying is, like, at a job, you have like your role, and there's things below your pay grade, above your pay grade, are not your job. So you get to you don't have to do those things because it's somebody else's job. But when you're the owner of the company, sometimes you do have to be the janitor. Sometimes you do have to, be the secretary, and you've got to do those roles. So
absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with that either. If you're too proud to do those things, then you're in the wrong field.
Yeah.
Any business, either be real estate, you have a dog grooming business, you own a restaurant, you're going to have to suck it up. And sometimes if somebody breaks a glass in your restaurant, you're going to have to go clean it up because your staff is busy serving and making you money. So it's just, one of those things that sometimes you have to sacrifice. We all have to do that.
So the example you use is actually one of the questions I wanted to ask you, as it pertains to our real estate business. I found that is the sales or the acquisition manager, whatever you want to call that role. That's been the hardest role to fill. I found, and we've only been really in that business for 2 years now. So I'm still the best person for the job. I've tried hiring people on salary plus commission. I've tried just commission only. And we just had our last acquisition manager, didn't work out. And so here we are, I'm answering the phones again at dinner time, and, having to go and meet sellers and do that. So how have you scaled that? Do you just find one good person and lock onto them, or is that an easier, are we missing something?
No, it's really going to boil down to like, how many deals do you plan on doing right off the bat? Because you will eventually need to have maybe a couple acquisitions managers. You shouldn't have more than likely two. They should handle the bulk majority of your business. But I've also, when I was just starting off and scaling, I had the acquisitions manager also be the liquidations manager, where when a deal gets under contract, it's up to them to get that deal liquidated as quickly as possible to our buyers list. And I do believe that individual needs to be somebody that doesn't just look at the person on the other end as the phone being like a dollar sign. They need to be good at sales, but they need to be a really good listener. Because if they don't listen, they're not going to be able to get the person under contract. The person's not going to trust them. Yeah. And the person's got to be like beyond great with follow-up, because sometimes you're not going to get that sale right off the bat on that first call. Sometimes it takes
most of the time, yeah.
Right. Sometimes it takes 5, 6, 7 times, and the person's just got to be relentless with follow-up and, sending out follow-up direct mail to the person just to be like, hey, thanks for talking to me the other day. I just want to let you know we're still very, very interested in your property. Just like little follow-up things. Like when, I was wanting to get a job like in my late teens and early 20s, I would do above and beyond whatever I had to do. I would, as soon as I got done doing an interview, I would send out a follow-up postcard saying, hey, thanks for your time. I look forward to joining your team. And then I would have like massive follow-up, and I would never have to worry about not getting a job. And I was always loyal to the companies that I was at as long as I was making good money. And I think that's with the same thing as well, is if your acquisitions manager sees that they're making money and they see that there's opportunity for growth, I think that's the ideal thing. Unfortunately, you're going to probably have to go through some people. I do this. This is something that you can do. I always give the person a task like, hey, review this hat, and I want you to be able to sell me the hat in like a couple of days. So and it's not going to be a hat. It's going to be like a product where they need to find out, like, I need to give them like at least my reasonings behind like what what's my issues right now? Like my house right now. There's a leak in the roof, the electricity. It's going to cost a lot to fix that.
Mm-hmm.
We're having some termite damage. You just have to, I always say, just shut up and listen to the person. Like 90% of the conversation with the seller should be
Really? Yeah.
telling you about their problems, because it's questions lead to confessions. So
Oh, I
if
like that.
if you're listening to them, they're going to confess everything that they want you to do to help solve their situation.
Yeah. We found that on the deals that close, we go back to the very beginning, looking at the lead when it first came in, and it's like something like 9 minutes. Like if you keep them on the phone for 9 minutes, doesn't, every call is obviously different, but what's common is the amount of time spent on the phone. Like if we're only on the phone with them for a couple of minutes in the beginning, we didn't get enough information. We didn't let them, talk. We didn't build enough rapport, and that's why those deals, those haven't turned into deals yet. It's the longer calls. So it makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And where have you found the best? Is there any resource to find those good salespeople? Are they usually? Is there anything common about them, or is it just a numbers game?
It does boil down to a numbers game, but family and friends have been great.
Okay.
Posting on Facebook, asking for referrals on that source as well. Bird dogs are always going to be a potential good source for you as well. So somebody just wanting to get into real estate, and they may be like a really good fit for somebody that's good on the phones, because most of our wholesales, I would say 80% of them, we never even look at. And it's because we do a good job on the phone up front. And one of the things is we have them walk us through the property visually if we're not there. So here, walk us through the front door. Like we're walking in together right now. What are we looking at? And they
Okay.
walk us through the whole entire property. And we have boots on the ground people too that will go and do a video for us, maybe just for like a flat fee on the property. And that's it. We hardly ever even look at the properties anymore. And it's because we just do a really good job of, doing good on that initial call, and the follow-up that pertains to that as well, because a lot of these sellers are getting overwhelmed nowadays with direct
Yeah,
mail.
no kidding.
You have to do something that's going to stand out.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Switching gears a little bit, I'd like to know, you're a family man. That's one thing that I really respect about you. And obviously you have your priorities in order. What is something that you've learned from your family, and how does it apply to business?
So it's just, I think being more of myself instead of, how I was maybe at Countrywide as, a branch manager, and, just not really looking out for what other people wanted. Like I would always make people like, it's just something that I was able to learn when I was at Countrywide, is just I would try and make people work like the same amount of hours that I would work, and it would never work, and I would drive people away just because they didn't have the same work ethic as
Mm.
I did. So it's just kind of like the same thing now as being a parent, being an entrepreneur. It's just you can't always be that hard-nosed person. You could still have like the that fire in the belly to be great, but when my kids get home from school, it's like a switch, it turns off. And then if I still need to do a little bit of stuff like later on in the evening, I will. But you could always wake up earlier. You could always go to bed a little bit earlier to get up and do things, so that you can have that so you could have a little bit more of like the word I'm looking for, balance. So
Okay.
you can have a little bit more balance in your life. So I would say that I've had to, I've learned to be a little bit more balanced, especially having a family. And you need to be, because I don't want to be one of those absentee fathers
Right. No kidding.
that, hey, we could go on great vacations and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's like, I'm hardly ever there. And that's not what I want.
Yeah. Yeah, I find that our kids are 3 and 4, and when they're that young, you can. I say I learned a lot getting married, right? I learned a lot from my wife. My wife challenges me. Like that relationship, obviously, is all about growth.
Yeah.
But you're adults, right? And you can talk each other into things. You can. It's very different. Adults talking and being patient with an adult is easier. The children, they don't want to hear anything, right? They want what they want. They don't
Yeah.
care about your selfish needs. They're just constantly show. It's so true how they're like a mirror. They show me so many things about myself where I'm like, oh, I need to work on that. Oh, I need to work on that. And
Yeah.
and force you to really like you're saying, like prioritize, and be like, all right, well, I know I could, there's always more work to do, but that's why I wake up at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Let me get that time in, sacrifice some sleep, but then we have 2, 3 hours with them after they wake up before they go to school. So I hear you, man, loud and clear.
Yeah, absolutely, dude.
um Let me see, I got a couple other questions here for you, which,
Sure.
let's see.
Shoot away.
What inspired you to write this book? This is your first book, right?
It is, and I'm almost done with my second.
Oh,
Um,
awesome.
and what really inspired me is like, what if something happens to me to where I'm gone? And because we have young children like you guys do. Ours are 9, 7, and 2. A little bit. The 2 are obviously older than yours, but
Hmm.
I wanted to leave something behind just in case.
Yeah.
Because there's so much that you can do, like leaving life insurance and any type of liquidity and assets. But at the end of the day, it's like I really wanted them to know who I was.
Mhm.
And I wrote that, for them. And, the story, I've gotten it out to, I think we've sold close to 3,000 copies.
Awesome. It
So,
just came out, didn't it?
well, April
April,
of
yeah.
2017. And, I wanted to leave something behind just in case something did happen. Um, as an insurance policy on them getting to know who I actually
Yeah.
really was, not by money or material things. So that's why I wrote that. And the next book is, I'm writing that to really help people find deals. So I'm going to kind of stick along the same lines of what that book is. If that one's right flipping now, the next one's going to be find the flipping deals. So so that's also the name of the company is No Flipping Excuses.
Oh, that's
Um,
sweet.
so that's what we do. And the wheelchair was on the end there because that's one of our big whys with the company.
Awesome. So speaking of legacy, um, and that's why we started this podcast. That's why we're 2 chapters away from our book being done.
Nice,
We
congrats.
Thanks. You're watching the kids grow up, and I'm like, we didn't grow up with much family, right? We didn't have the role models and stuff growing up. So Sam and I literally just had to figure a lot of this stuff out on our own. At least we had each other, right?
Yeah,
Um, but I don't want, that was a good 10, 15 years of just grind, hustle, failure, heartache, stuff that could totally be avoided or done earlier. Like
yeah,
you don't want your kids to have to, go through that in 10, 15 years if they could just get that done in, the earlier first few years, right?
yeah, exactly.
So, and I know kids don't always listen to their parents' advice, but the more content that we create, the more that's out there for them to find, at least the higher the chances are that, we'll leave some breadcrumbs behind for them.
Yeah.
But with that said, who do you turn to for advice? Who have been some of your mentors, and why?
I've hired a lot of mentors over the years, and I'm always I probably have a very similar background to you guys growing up. My dad worked all the time just so that we can have food on the table and the mortgage was paid. He had a heart transplant my freshman year of high school, so we almost lost our house to foreclosure. I had to get a second job as a 16-year-old. So I didn't want that life. My mom worked all the time too, but it was crazy. I telling the kids the other day, I was just looking back. She always, every once in a while she would, get me a pair of Jordans, and I never knew really what it meant at the time, but I do now. And it's, she was willing to do whatever it took to make her kids happy. There's a total of 4 of us on our side, so she had to do a lot. And I'll always be thankful and grateful, because I think if I would have had a different role or a different life, I don't know if I would be where I am today, because they're the ones that I looked at, and they were my inspiration to be different, be better, and not be a slave to somebody else. And not to get too far off track on your question, but I just feel like with mentors, you need to have somebody that's going to push you. If you're looking for like a coach that's a cheerleader, I don't know if that's going to be the right thing, because if you screw up, you need to have somebody that tells you, dude, you screwed up.
Yeah.
You can't have somebody just be like Mr. Positive all the time. You need somebody that's going to, take that fire poker and, slap you on the backside and like, get going. What are you doing? So there's been a lot of people in my office. I have pictures of, people that, I have John F. Kennedy, Tony Robbins, Michael Jordan, Schwarzenegger, Steve Jobs, and Einstein behind me. I do need to get some females up there. So for people that are listening, I'm not just putting men up there just to put men up there. I will get some females up there. But, I've hired a lot of people over there. Ryan Dice, Kevin Nations. I've hired some other people too, and they've all given me something that the other wasn't able to give. And I'm always listening to audiobooks too. So, there's always somebody out there doing something better and bigger than you. Mm-hmm. And if you could put your ego aside, you're going to learn a ton from other people.
So there isn't just one person necessarily. It's, you're always looking for mentors. You're always seeking other people's advice who are in a place with that part of their business or life or what have you that you haven't figured out yet.
Well, here's the deal. As you grow, this is just me. Mm-hmm. As you grow, you look for other things from other mentors. And the first person that I really liked, especially in high school, was Tony Robbins. Yeah. It couldn't have come at a better time, because, like I said, my dad was on a waiting list for a heart transplant for a year. So he was, it was really difficult timing. But my parents in the late 80s, they went to a conference and bought Tony Robbins stuff. It was on like a big cassette tape deal. So there was like 12 cassettes in there. Now I started listening to that in high school, and that helped out quite a bit. And then as I started to grow, I still like listening to Tony's stuff. I still think his stuff is good. I watched his Netflix documentary. I really liked it. I had never saw that side of Tony before.
Yeah, me neither.
I've never gone to his seminars before, but it was really good. But no, I believe as you grow, you look for things from other people. And I can't say that it's just been one person. There's been people that helped get me started in real estate, in the education space as well. And I'll always, look up to them, but it's not just one.
Is there,
go ahead.
Anyone that's looking for an entrepreneur or looking for mentors, I think we talk about this quite often. It's a theme that comes up when we're interviewing people, because it's so key. Like the relationships that we have been, 80% of how we've grown in business and personally, Sam and I. So if someone's looking for a mentor, what advice would you give them? I know one thing you said was that they've got to be someone who's willing, you give permission to push you, not just a cheerleader, because there's plenty of, quote, coaches out there who will gladly, have you pay their fee and just be a cheerleader. But is there anything else that you would recommend someone if they're looking for that, for a mentor?
I would say you got to get along with the person too. That's a huge thing. Is like I, we don't just take on anybody, especially in our educational business for like
Hmm.
high end. Hey, I want to work with you more. Like instead of just buying your training course, I want to work with you. If we're not a good fit for each other, I'll let them know that right off the bat, and it needs to be something that's felt mutually for us to be working together. Because I only take on a limited number of people per year, and those people have an opportunity for partnering with me and all that kind of stuff. And if I feel like it's going to be something like they're going to be like somebody that I constantly have to be lifting, like we're both tied up at the ankle, and we're both trying to get to the race. But if they keep falling and I have to keep picking them up because they're not listening to me, it's
Hmm.
more than likely not going to be a good fit, because you have to be able to listen, and you have to be coachable.
Gotcha. All right. So you obviously have a lot going on. The book, the info, the education business, the real estate. You have a nonprofit
Yeah.
as well. What are your best rituals, personal and or business, to help you have like a productive day?
I first, in the mornings, what I this is just nuts. I don't drink coffee or any caffeinated beverages. I
That is
just
nuts.
it is. People have always asked, what's up with that, and it was um I stopped drinking a lot of like the caffeinated stuff probably in my early 20s, because I had a atrial fibrillation, which is an irregular heartbeat. So
Oh wow.
I didn't want to mess around with speeding up the heart and doing any kind of crazy stuff from a metabolic standpoint. I wanted everything to be natural. So first of all, I get up and I drink like I think it's like 48 ounces of water, and it gets me going just the same way as caffeine used to. I don't know what it
48
is.
ounces.
It's a lot of water.
Yeah.
I don't drink it all like good, 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 good,
I
good,
was
good.
gonna say.
Um, I do it a little bit over time. I try and read for a little bit before the kids get up,
Yep.
and I really try and plan out the day too. So I still have this is something that I've been doing ever since my Countrywide days. I write out everything that I need to on my yellow pad. I know it's probably not the most
Super high
productive.
tech.
It's super high tech. Um, I even invested like in a really nice CRM with Google, but I feel like this is always the best because it's something I write down and I get to really do it. So I plan out my day of my top 5 things that I need to do, and then as I'm progressing, I'll constantly write notes and all that kind of stuff. But I really like to do that, and I still feel like good balance, like going and maybe working out, or from a mental aspect, doing the reading, and just I like spending time with the kids in the morning before they go off to school,
Mhm.
and after they go to school, then I normally I buckle down and get to it and do as much as I can. I try and have that same mindset that Will Smith had in Pursuit of Happiness. He had to get a certain amount of work done because he needed to go pick up his kids. So he did more dialing on the phones than the other people, because he would always keep the phone right here, and he would use his finger to do the hang up, and then he was able to get in more calls because everybody else would set the phone down. They would take their time. They would look at who they should call next. He already knew who he needed to call. So that was Chris Gardner that he played in the movie. That was a really good movie too.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, being able to spend time with the wife too. Sometimes we like just doing date days to where we'll just go and see a movie in
Yeah.
the middle of the day.
Fridays.
Um,
That's what we like to, while the kids are in school. You don't have to pay a
exactly.
babysitter or nothing.
Exactly. You're already paying for it, so why not just go? So we normally try and go and do date days or go grab lunches together, because that's one of the most important relationships.
For sure.
Um, so we definitely do that. I've been a Krav Maga instructor now for the past 3 years, which is a Israeli martial art. I've been doing it now 6 years in total. So I still like doing that. That's a great way to decompress and get rid of a lot of stress. You just go there and you pound on things, and when you get out, you feel like $1,000,000, and the endorphins are going, everything's going. You're just, you're ready to tackle whatever's in front of you. So I definitely recommend folks need to figure out like something that's going to get them like really going. That's one of the things I love doing, and still working out too. That's always fun.
So do you like plan out your day like hour by hour on your calendar, or do you just stay focused on those five, like the top five priorities you have, and just write them down?
I did do that. I would plan out hour by hour, and I would stay on it to a T. And I figured out after I got in a consistent groove that I didn't need to do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I just focused on the five things, because whenever I get started, especially if people come to our seminars, I always say, if you're just starting out and you feel like you're not getting any traction, monitor your whole entire day. And it doesn't have to be just all work. Like, monitor from when you wake up until you go to bed. And it's a great way to find out what holes or lags are in your system, because trust me, you'll probably find 2 or 3 hours where you're like, oh my gosh, I wasn't doing anything during that time, and I could have spent it on my business or on myself.
Gotcha. All right. So I heard, writing down the five things, just super analog, getting up in the morning with water and some reading. On the family side of things, so you said you like that time in the morning with the kids before school is kind of a ritual. Anything like after school? You said, I mean, you have the games and stuff, but is there any other, like, do you have rituals with the kids after school, or is it just depend? Does it revolve around the sports, or?
No, it will, and you'll get to this route here too. I make sure if they have homework, they do it, because one of the things growing up, I didn't really have that structure. I was such an awful student.
Yeah, me too.
My parents would never check in to make sure I was doing my homework. So I don't want the kids to have that same experience, because gosh, it just was such an awful feeling not having homework done. And that was my own fault. And being awful at test taking because I didn't know the materials. It was just, I don't want that feeling for them. I'm not a big believer in college and all that kind of stuff. People have all of their own take on it. They want to go to school, they're going to go to school, but they're not going to be goofing off where they're constantly boozing it up. If you're going to go and learn. But when they get home, make sure they get their homework done. And if they want to go and shoot hoops outside for a little bit, I'll typically get involved and we'll play horse, or get them ready. If they're wanting to learn something, I bought like those plyometric boxes so they could become better jumpers, because let's face it, I wasn't a good
jump.
Yes, I wasn't a good leaper in high school, and we'll see what they equate to. Hopefully, by all the stuff that's available nowadays, they could be good little basketball players when they grow up.
Cool. I got 2 more questions for you, and then I'll let you out of here. One, in the real estate, going back to real estate, what do you think about this market that we're in right now? It's a
really interesting market. It's I do believe it. A lot of folks are thinking that something big is on the horizon. I honestly, I think the market right now is great. We're seeing steady growth in a lot of markets across the country. We're not seeing that rapid appreciation that happened like in 05 and 06, to where homes one year were 125,000, the next year they were 250.
Yeah.
I don't see that happening as much. I see it in some markets, and that might be a problem. But I definitely think, from a shadow inventory standpoint, short sales are probably going to become big again, just because there's so much debt out there. People have racked up so much debt and credit cards and student loan debts that I think that's going to be a problem this time around. It's not going to be oh my gosh, we're losing our job. It's going to be, oh my gosh, we don't have enough money to pay our bills.
Yeah, they said the last cycle, it was only the difference between like a couple few $100 between being able to make the mortgage payment and not. And like I mean, interest rate can go up just a little bit, or insurance. I remember our insurance back then, we went from like having to pay, I don't know, on one of our properties, it was a few $100s a month, and it went up to like $1,000 a month. The mortgage wasn't even 1,000. We're like, what is going on? So yeah, how is that?
One little spike nowadays, like say for instance, your car breaks, and it's out of warranty, or your hot water breaks, or your furnace breaks. You're not in a really great spot at this time, because a lot of these folks that I'm referring to that are probably going to face some uncertain times are folks that don't put away. They may have a 401k, but they put in like a very small amount, so they don't have savings. So I think that's going to be uncertain times for a lot of folks, and I believe it's going to lead to more pre-foreclosures being started, notice of defaults and lis pendens. I see that being something that's going to happen. I don't think it's going to be as big as the '08 crash.
Right. Let's hope not.
No, I don't think it's going to be. I think if people do short sales, they're not going to get the same type of discounts that we got in '09 and 2010.
I have heard the stated income is back with a few places, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. So there's stated income that's back, and there's also subprime is making a comeback too. So let's just, I hate, hoping for things. I'm more of like, you just go after it, and that's what makes it happen. But I hope we've learned from our mistakes, from all the loans. I was a huge part of it. The loans that we can do for people were nuts. Yeah. So hopefully they've learned their lesson, but I keep monitoring like government foreclosures and regular Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac foreclosures, and we're starting to see a rise, an increase in pre-foreclosures being sent out to homeowners. And I do believe it's coming down to consumer debt that's out there. It's like well over like $1 trillion.
Yeah. I mean, I can't believe it feels like '08 again, or like '05 through '08 when we get the credit cards in the mail. I mean, I have not seen, and we were not credit worthy, right? We messed up our credit in the crash, and now it's as if they all forgot about it because there's just stacks and stacks of credit card offers. I'm like, this is borderline irresponsible that like they're just like cramming the debt down your throat. So
it is.
We're like allergic.
Pretty bad. No, it is. I my thing is it's good to have maybe like 3 to 4 cards, but don't max them all out and just pay the minimum.
Right, of course.
If you want to keep your credit score good, if your credit card says like you're good for 5,000, the most I may put on is like 500 or $1,000. But normally what I do is I'll pay 3/4 of it, but I'll have a little go over from a revolving standpoint in order to show the credit bureaus that, I am responsible, I am paying on time, but I never get myself in a position where I can't pay it either all in full, because normally with my Amex, you obviously have to pay that in full every month. So that's not a good card as far as building credit, but like a Visa or MasterCard is probably the best way to go. But don't get yourself in. The credit bureaus will kill you once you go over 50% of what that card's maximum is.
Yep.
So just some food for thought for folks.
So if someone's new in real estate right now and they're getting into this market, there's like here in Tampa, super competitive. The rule is usually, the 70% rule, try to, do all your numbers based on 70% below, the market value. But we're seeing people paying 80, 85%. So what, is this a good time for someone new, or is this do you feel like this is the peak of it? This is the hardest time to get in?
Well, Tampa's always been one of those competitive markets. Two things. So it
does depend on the market?
It does.
Yeah.
But two things. You can stay in Tampa. There's nothing wrong with purchasing properties at those higher amounts. At that point, you're either selling the property with the equity spread in it, or you're selling the property from a standpoint of, can it cash flow in its as is condition? You
Mm-hmm.
know, if I could get a property at 85%, I'll sell it at 100% as long as the property can cash flow in its as is condition. If you're buying at 85% and it needs rehab, I'd probably say that's probably not the best route to
Right, right.
go. But if you're purchasing it at, top of the market, be prepared for being creative and selling that property as a cash flow property instead of, hey, this is a great rehab opportunity, when it may not even need much rehab. It may just, it may be in perfect condition from a rental standpoint. And as long as you have good management in place and you have a good tenant in place, that property is going to cash flow and it's going to make somebody a tremendous amount of money. Or it could be you making the money with private money. You could get private money on that deal, keep it for 6 to 9 months, and then you could refinance that private money lender off. And now you've got a bank loan that is at maybe 6.5% interest rate, and you're making 15% every single month. So I look at that as a win.
Gotcha. And then do you work with Jamie? Do you guys work together, or?
She works, she does work a little bit in the company. She's more taking the mom role,
She's
which
managing
is,
the other business, the home
she
business?
is, she is, and she does a great job at that, but she still does a little bit with me on the business, with making sure any of our clients that we have, they have all of the details for our coaching calls. They make sure if we have an event, like they have all of the specifics on getting to us properly, and the proper discounts for the rooms to stay at the hotel. So she's on top of the stuff that I'm not really good at from an operational standpoint.
Okay. So I asked that because obviously Sam and I work together. We have interviewed other entrepreneurs that work together. Usually when we're out with friends, people are like, I could never work with my wife. How do you do it? Usually a wife is either 100% homemaker or has a completely separate career that has nothing to do with the business. For those that do want to work with their spouse more, do you have any tips for how you guys have been able to communicate, work together, whether it's on a part-time basis or full-time basis? She's involved. She's aware of the business, right? She's not just like, all right, you go do your thing and,
No,
just completely
she
blind to it.
no, she knows the business, because I work from home and she's home. So she knows pretty much everything that's going on in the business, because I'm just, a few feet away from her,
Uh-huh.
unless she's outside doing something. But for the most part, this is all I've ever really known, to be honest with you, because as soon as I started working for myself full time in '08, it was from home. And I would always leave the doors open, because I was always open to constructive advice, because at that time she was still working. So she would still give great feedback on, hey, I think you should do this. Hey, I think you should do that. So I'm always open to hearing from other folks. And I tend to sit back, take that information in, and, see if I can use it in the business. So, I love having her home, because she's able to be like, hey, I think you should redo that video, or, hey, I think you should say this instead of that. So,
That's cool.
she's the one that went to school and has the degree, and she's got the right way to do English grammar and all that kind of stuff. So sometimes I'll have her proofread some of my
Yeah.
emails that I send out too. So she's good. She's really, really good from that standpoint. I think that's all she wants to do in the business, because other than that, she's pretty busy as a full-time mom.
Yeah, I hear you. So that is really important. I have the fact that you're open to hearing her suggestions. I like to, we joke all the time that, like women have like that instinctive, or they have that, what's the word I'm looking for? Intuition,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah.
And I have had plenty of friends or people that have come into the business and they just don't understand like how like why I want to make sure I phrase this right, but basically like why I allow Sam to have such an opinion, right? As if like I'm doing this all by myself, obviously, right? Like,
Yeah.
but that's how they see it. They're like, oh, like, oh, my wife said this, but she doesn't know. She's not spending as much time in the business as much as I'm. And funny enough, I found that Sam doesn't have to go through as many courses or read as much stuff as I do to already have that. Like she gets it out of like an article and she'll be like, okay, I
Oh
think,
man.
and she'll like make the right suggestion or give the right feedback without having to necessarily invest as much as I do. So my question for you is what advice do you have or how have like that attitude? That's you kind of glaze over it, but that's a really important attitude to have. I don't know if it's ego sometimes or I mean for me I struggled with it early on in our really, we've been together 16 years, but that's how I thought like, oh, she didn't read, these 200 books. She only read like two. So she doesn't, but then as we grew and as we had experience and she was right a lot of times or her feedback really did help. I've over the years slowly let go of that more and more and more. And now like I turn to her a lot more because I'm like, all right, what I need to make sure you don't see any holes here or, help prioritize this. You know what I mean? So
No, I do the
advice would
same.
you give guys uh, or females who are not open to their but whatever side it is, right?
Well, I think from a female standpoint, females are much more open to it than us males, just
Mhm.
because we get a little hard headed,
Yeah.
and the ego stands into play as like, oh, we're not going to take advice from our wife.
Uh-huh.
Um, I learned early on that by not doing it, it also leads to arguments that you don't trust them, you don't validate them as an equal,
Mhm.
and I absolutely view my wife as an absolute equal. We're we're partners for life, partners for everything, and the sooner that you can realize that, the sooner that you can be open to so much more, and the relationship could grow and expand and uh, just take off to levels that you never thought. So I love getting the input from her. Sometimes she may not know exactly what I'm doing, but it's good to maybe have her jump in from time to time, or I'll just ask her to come and be like, hey, what do you think of this, or what do you think of that? So I know when I came out there a few years ago, Sam's really sharp.
Mhm.
She's great. I like her. Phenomenal wife that you have there, man. So I
Appreciate
think she's the one that set up the interview for us here.
it.
So,
She did,
uh,
yeah.
no, love Sam. She's a great girl. Glad you guys have such a phenomenal marriage.
Yeah, I feel like the business has only helped us helped our relationship grow at a deeper level, right? Because you have so many more opportunities for conversations and challenges that that you have to work through.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're two ships passing in the night, both working on your own thing, it's a lot harder for that to happen.
Oh, I absolutely agree with you.
All right, just last question. What is
Sure.
something that I should have asked you that I didn't?
Oh man, that's a tough one. We went through some good stuff. Yeah, that's a really great question. We are working with folks that are wheelchair bound and also have disabilities too, that we
Awesome.
could talk about, because that's a huge thing right now for anybody that's a real estate investor. Less than 1% of the market out there has homes available for people in wheelchairs, and even the properties that
Wow.
we go and look at, they're not wheelchair accessible. They may have a ramp, but most of these ramps are so steep. It's so hard for either somebody in a non-motorized wheelchair or even a motorized chair to get up these steep inclines, and it's just tough finding good quality properties out there. So some of the things that we're working on is remodeling homes for people that are wheelchair bound, so that we can give them a better quality of life inside the property and a better quality of life outside of the property too, so that they can have a much more quality of life. Because a lot of us don't get it, because when people get into these accidents and they go home, their homes are not wheelchair ready.
Mm-hmm.
The statistics are crazy. I didn't know this until my buddy, who's also a partner with us, Dustin Shilcox, who our foundation is through. He's the one who told us this. It's just crazy when you get home. The homes aren't ready, and every 45 minutes somebody is paralyzed, and it's 2 million people per year that are being faced with being paralyzed. So it's crazy numbers out there. And one of the craziest things is we just had that Vegas shooting not too long ago, and one of the individuals was shot in the spine, and all of a sudden she wakes up now and she goes home to a house that's not even wheelchair accessible.
Yeah.
So it's just tough for folks. So we're trying to come in, make life easier, and just give them the quality of life that they desire and want.
And so it's more than just a ramp to get into the house, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, what are you rehabbing the houses completely to like lower things, widen entryways? Like, what does that look like?
That's what a lot of it is. We're doing roll-in showers. We're making the bathrooms bigger, because most of the time we're doing pocket doors instead of regular doors, because let's face it, when we go into the bathroom, we want privacy. So
Right.
We're doing the pocket doors. We're doing the barn doors, just to make it easier for them to get in and out of parts of the house. There's little parts when you transfer from one room to the other that there's little spacers. Sometimes that will screw up their tires. The kitchen's a big one. So we have to make sure that typically what we're doing is like a farm style sink, to where the sink is lowered to where they can go in there still, wash their hands, wash dishes. We're not lowering the countertops. We're making it to where they could open up doors and they could slide right in and do whatever they need to on the countertops. We're doing that. So it's not just and depending on the level of injury, for some of these people, once you start getting like middle of the chest on up, they start losing functionality in their triceps. So their hands become almost like in a carpal tunnel stage, and they have to use their palm on their motorized wheelchair to move around. And sometimes those folks need the chair ramp, the chair elevator going up if there's stairs in the property. So we're going in and making the whole home easier for them to get around, especially transferring from maybe the bed to the chair, transferring from the chair to the bathroom, wherever it needs to be. We're going in there and helping these folks out, because there's not a lot of people realizing that this is a major problem in our country.
Yeah, we had a friend actually got in a mountain bike accident a few years back. I think we're actually going to be interviewing them about starting over, because they were very successful in what they were doing. And he was at like the top of CarMax, had some high level position, and he did everything with his hands. And then one day, just out on a regular, fun mountain bike workout, basically, falls on his back, and that's it. And I've watched them over the years. They've moved, I think, 3 times, because it's new, right? You're like, oh, okay, well, I need to be somewhere where it's more accessible. And then you get there, and then you live in it for a little while and realize, wow, there's more adjustments or more limitations that we have to account for. So that's awesome what you're doing, man. Are you, is this something that's public, that if people want to go and in any way participate, help, request help?
Yeah, no, we have applications to where folks are able to go onto our site, noflippingexcuses.com, and you could fill out an application. Every entry is $2. And if you go to our store, you could buy t-shirts like this. We're going to have hats in there. We're going to have a bunch of cool things, but for every $5 that you spend in the store, that's going to give you another entry to our giveaways. So we're doing home remodels as a giveaway. We're doing houses as giveaways. So yeah, if people want to go there, my book's in there too. So all of the profits are going all towards donations.
Cool. So the URL, so to get this book, you can get it on noflippingexcuses.com.
Yep, in the store. So if they want to go there and purchase it, you'll get the book just like you would if you wanted to on Amazon. The only thing is, all of the profits are going towards donations so that we can do these giveaways for people that really need it in a very bad way. And you can also let us know too. We've got the Facebook page, which is just facebook.com/no flipping excuses. If you want us to reach out to somebody and talk to them, we can do that too. Dustin has opened our eyes to so many different things out there for talking to folks.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I want to be respectful of your time, man. We've been going for about an hour here.
Yeah.
Got a lot of great questions answered. I'm glad you're able to share so much. I really appreciate you, man. I appreciate you for putting this book out. I know you say, you did it basically for your family and your legacy, but as well as I do how many people that's gonna help and inspire and continue to live on, right? When that next book comes out, let me know. I'd love to do a follow-up. I had a whole other list of questions regarding how to find properties, what kind of marketing tactics and strategies you do. So that'll be a great follow-up interview.
Yeah.
But yeah. Again, guys, like you say, life isn't easy, as you heard. I mean, he said when your first year in business or what have you, you're thinking of being an entrepreneur, don't expect it to be easy. It's going to be hard. I'd say the same thing about marriage. I mean, the earlier years, it was hard work. Anything that's worth having is worth working for, right? So
Absolutely.
Just another great example, another great interview of that. We're not perfect, but we do put in the work to make it work. So I hope you take what you want from this interview. What you don't want, don't take. And again, thanks, Jason.
Thank you, Brandon, for having me.
All right.